The waitress bought lunch for a stranger with her very last dollar, not knowing he was the newly minted millionaire she was about to interview. All right, dear viewers, prepare yourselves for a story that will leave you speechless. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly feel the spirit of what I'm sharing here. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see you joining us from every corner of the globe. Ava Harper stepped out of the small diner on the corner of Pike Place Avenue. Her shoulders ached from a long shift. She clutched her resume in a plastic bag. The crumpled papers seemed to carry the fragility of her fate. Only $5 remained in her pocket, enough for a loaf of bread or a bus fare back to her cramped Capitol Hill apartment. Her stomach growled reminder of a skipped breakfast and an uncertain lunch. Yet Ava paid it no mind. She was accustomed to hunger, to its gnawing at the body without touching the will. In her mind, only one thought: tomorrow's interview at Cascade Innovations, the last chance to escape the cycle of exhausting shifts and contemptuous glances. Her steps slowed when she spotted a middle-aged man sprawled on the sidewalk. His coat threadbare, hair matted, hands pressed to his side as if to conceal pain. Beside him, a torn paper bag, a soaked burrito, and a rattling soda can lay useless. The crowd passed by. Polished shoes didn't spare a glance. Ava paused, her heart clenched. She knew the feeling of abandonment, of being a phantom in the flood of humanity. Without hesitation, she knelt, her hand brushing his shoulder. Her voice was soft, brimming with concern. "Sir, are you all right?" The man looked up, offering a wry smile to mask his shame. He joked that his pride hurt more than his body, though his eyes lingered on the ruined burrito with fleeting regret. Ava said nothing. She rose and walked into the nearby cafe, its air thick with roasted coffee and fresh fish. Her hand trembled as she handed the clerk $4.75, almost all she had, in exchange for a freshly wrapped burrito and a bottle of water. Then she returned to the man. He froze, shaking his head, stammering that she needn't do this. But Ava only smiled, a weary yet warm beam, like a small light in the dark. She placed the food in his hands and said she knew hunger, knew what it felt like to go unseen. Her words were simple but carried a long story. The days spent in prison for a wrongful conviction, sleepless nights, hungry and aching from grief. She did not wait for his reply. She merely nodded, then walked away, her steps gentle but resolute, as though her deed were the most natural thing in the world. In that moment, Ava didn't know who the man was. She did not see his eyes tracking her retreating form, nor hear his heart pounding in surprise and gratitude. That man was Nathan Cole, newly minted millionaire and founder of Cascade Innovations, the very company where tomorrow she would sit for her interview. To Nathan, Ava was not merely a kind stranger. She was a rare spark, a reminder that kindness endures even in those who seem to have lost everything. He held the burrito tightly, warmth from the waxed paper seeping through his fingers, but what truly stirred his heart was her sincerity. Ava, with her worn shoes and ink-stained resume, had given him far more than lunch. She had given him hope. As Ava moved on, her bag empty and stomach still hollow, her spirit felt light. She didn't expect her small act to change anything. She only knew that in that moment she'd done what was right. She did not see Nathan's gaze following her, nor know that her simple gesture had planted a seed ready to sprout in a future she had never dared to dream. Her steps joined the flow of people, carrying with them a fragile hope for tomorrow, when a new door might open, and she would prove herself not merely an ex-convict, but a person worth being seen. Ava Harper stepped into the lobby of Cascade Innovations. Her heart pounded so fiercely she thought it might shatter her chest. Her sodden shoes left pale streaks on the gleaming marble floor. Each footfall reminded her that she did not belong here. The crumpled resume clutched to her chest was a fragile shield for her trembling hope. Her brown hair, knotted and damp, mirrored the exhaustion of long nights spent preparing. She had a single chance, one interview at Cascade Innovations, to escape the cycle of back-breaking shifts and scornful stares, to prove she was not the person she had been 4 years ago, not the criminal who had spent 18 months behind bars. But fear clung to her, whispering that she would fail again, that her past would forever overshadow her future. In the waiting room, Ava curled into a leather chair. Her gaze flicked over the other candidates, confident fingers swiping iPads, tailored suits hugging perfect bodies, laughter echoing with pride. Ava felt like an ink blot on pristine paper, an outsider among flawless people. She squeezed her resume tighter, her nails digging into her palm, forcing away memories of past rejections and contemptuous glances when they learned she was an ex-convict. But she could not give up, not after all she had lost. Her mother, her freedom, and her faith in herself. The interview began, and Ava entered the glass-walled conference room with leaden feet. 3 faces awaited her. Sarah from HR, Marcus from engineering, and Ellen, legal counsel, her gaze sharp as a blade. They started with gentle questions, praising the self-taught programming certificates she had earned in prison and her hours teaching code to children at the community center. Ava answered calmly, but her heart raced as the atmosphere shifted. Ellen opened her file. Her fingertip tapped the page, and then came the question Ava feared most, sharp as a cut. She had been convicted of financial fraud 4 years ago and served 18 months. How did she explain that? Ava drew a deep breath. The room seemed to shrink until it held only her and their cold stares. She met their eyes without flinching, though old pain surged like a wave. She spoke of herself at 23, a novice accountant at a startup, blindly trusting an ex-boyfriend who used her accounts for illegal transfers before disappearing when everything collapsed. She had no money for a good lawyer, no evidence to defend herself. The system had crushed her, and she paid with 18 months behind bars. In prison, she lost her mother, missed the funeral, and carried regret that scourged her every night. But she refused to let it define her. She taught herself to code from tattered books, rising from the ashes. "I'm not begging for forgiveness," she said, her voice steady, though her heart ached. "I'm only asking for a chance to prove who I am today." Silence fell over the room, heavy as a new sentence. Sarah studied her papers. Marcus rolled a pen between his fingers. Ellen nodded slowly, her gaze distant and cold. Ava felt their unspoken rejection, as if a door were closing. She stood, her shoulders slumped, her heart weighted by the world. She left the room and walked down the sparkling hallway, her shoes leaving faint smudges on the floor. She did not know that her small act of kindness yesterday, using her last dollar to buy lunch for a stranger, had planted a seed in Nathan Cole's heart, the man she had helped who would change her fate. Now Ava felt only familiar loneliness and a flicker of hope that tomorrow might be different. Nathan Cole stood silently behind the glass wall, his gaze fixed on Ava Harper as she faced those cold, cutting questions in the interview room. His heart still stirred by yesterday's encounter, when he, wearing a threadbare coat, had wandered Pike Place to feel Seattle's pulse, anonymously, before officially becoming Cascade Innovations' CEO. He'd craved the raw reality that luxury boardrooms and millionaire prestige had obscured. Yet Ava had stopped him in his tracks. In her worn shoes and weary eyes, she had paused by his side when everyone else passed by. Her act, spending her last dollar on a burrito for a stranger, was more than kindness. It was a beacon, a reminder that people can choose compassion even when they have nothing left. Nathan could not forget that moment. As Ava handed him the wax paper-wrapped burrito, her tired smile concealed an ocean of pain, and her words, that she knew what it felt like to go unseen, echoed in him like a silent confession. He realized in her eyes not just empathy, but a story of survival, of rising from ruin. Immediately after the interview, Nathan instructed his legal team to investigate Ava's past. He refused to trust instinct blindly, yet his heart told him she was not the person her conviction described. The report returned swiftly, and what he read clenched his jaw. Ava had been wronged. Her ex-boyfriend, James Reed, a long-time con artist, had used her accounts for illicit transactions, then vanished, leaving her alone before a merciless justice system. Without funds or counsel, Ava never stood a chance. She paid with 18 months behind bars, bearing the scars of a crime she did not commit. In the conference room, Nathan entered, and his presence hushed the air. He placed the empty paper bag, the one that had held his burrito, on the table. Its worn folds symbolized what he was about to say. The panel, Sarah, Marcus, and Ellen, looked up, curiosity and doubt in their eyes. Nathan did not rush. He recounted the woman who had stopped for a stranger fallen on the sidewalk, who had given her last dollar without expectation of return. He echoed Ava's words in his deep, weighty voice. She knew the pain of being abandoned, of being invisible. Each word he spoke fell like a hammer strike, shattering the room's prejudiced walls. He was not merely telling a story. He was painting the portrait of a soul who chose kindness in her own hunger, a spirit deserving of opportunity. Nathan then announced the launch of the New Opportunity Program, an unprecedented hiring policy at Cascade Innovations. He wanted the company to assess candidates not by their past, but by their journey of rising from their scars. Ava Harper, he declared, would be the first beneficiary. His sharp eyes swept the room, challenging anyone to object. No one spoke. Silence reigned, not oppressive now, but full of promise, a fresh breeze flowing through glass walls and stiff suits. Nathan knew he had sown a seed, not only for Ava, but for the company, and perhaps for himself. As Nathan left the room, the paper bag remained on the table, plain yet profound. He did not look back, but inside he felt a rare lightness. Ava, by her small act, had achieved what his millions could not. She had rekindled his faith in human goodness. He knew from this moment on, Ava's story belonged to more than herself. It would become a flame, lighting a new path for those the world had forgotten. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water before we continue, because the next twists are yet to come. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see you tuning in from across the globe. Comment 1 if you enjoyed the story so we can keep bringing you more great tales. Ava Harper stepped into Cascade Innovations with a heavy heart. The new employee badge glittering on her lapel felt like a fragile promise. She had survived the brutal interview, but reality here was anything but easy. Curious glances and whispered comments in the cafeteria made her feel like an outsider. Colleagues avoided her, as though her prison past were a stain that might spread. Ava kept her head down and worked relentlessly. Her fingers flew over the keyboard faster than anyone's, yet she said thank you more often than needed, each word a desperate bid to prove herself worthy. Deep inside, she carried a familiar fear of forever remaining the girl defined by those 18 months behind bars, never truly accepted. Every day, Ava fought her own demons. She hid her loneliness behind polite smiles and extra hours, but the pain smoldered like an old wound. She remembered the nights in prison when dreams of a new life were the only thing keeping her awake. She remembered her mother's death while she was locked away, and the guilt of not saying goodbye. Those memories made her grip the edge of her desk whenever her past was mentioned, yet they also fueled her determination not to let that verdict define her future. One late night, when Cascade Innovations halls lay silent, Ava sat alone at her desk, papers strewn about for a major data project. Her eyes stung, lids heavy, but she kept typing, convincing herself she only needed 5 more minutes. Then her body surrendered. Her head collapsed onto the stack of papers, brown hair spilling forward, her breath drifting softly into the stillness. Nathan Cole, back at the office to retrieve a forgotten file, paused at the single light in the corner. His heart stirred at the sight of Ava, a strong yet vulnerable young woman, slumped over in her tireless efforts. He gently removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. The soft fabric brushed her skin. He placed a steaming cup of ginger tea on the desk. Its thin tendrils of steam carried a soothing fragrance. When Ava stirred and opened her eyes, her face registered surprise and a flush of embarrassment. Nathan smiled, warmth in his gaze, and told her she needed to rest. He offered her a ride home, guiding her through Seattle's glittering streets. In the car, the faint scent of sandalwood lingered. The radio played soft jazz, creating a safe, intimate cocoon. Exhausted, Ava laid her head against the seat and drifted to sleep. A stray lock of hair fell across her cheek, quivering with each steady breath. Nathan watched, hand hovering, then gently tucked the hair behind her ear, a gesture so tender it seemed to guard something precious. Ava opened her eyes. Their gazes met, and time held its breath. Nathan looked away quickly, awkwardly noting that her hair had fallen over her face. Ava blushed, turning to the window, her heart hammering in her chest. When the car pulled up outside her Capitol Hill apartment, Ava climbed out. Her worn shoes touched the pavement. She turned back, eyes shining with emotion, and whispered, "Thank you. For the tea, the coat, and above all, for the chance he had given her." Nathan met her gaze, sincerity in his eyes, and replied that she deserved nothing less. They parted ways, but the space between them no longer felt empty. Ava's heart pounded with a strange new sensation, a spark of hope that she was not just seen, but valued. Nathan sat in his car, still warmed by the memory of that moment, a connection he had never anticipated. Both of them, in the silent night, carried new rhythms in their hearts, the first tremors of something deeper, waiting to bloom. 3 months after stepping into Cascade Innovations, Ava Harper received an invitation to speak at the company's internal culture workshop. The crisp, white letter lay quietly on her desk, yet it made her heart pound as if facing an insurmountable peak. Ava hesitated. She feared judging eyes, her voice trembling before a crowd. Her prison past dredged up once more as an indelible scar. Each night she lay in bed, memories of those cold prison walls, the clank of metal locks, and her mother's death, when she could not say goodbye, rose like ghosts. Yet she also recalled the hours spent teaching herself to code from tattered books, and her promise to herself. She would not let that verdict define her future. One morning she found a small note on her desk in Nathan Cole's handwriting. "Your voice is stronger than you think. That message was a ray of light, banishing the darkness in her heart. Ava drew a deep breath and resolved to step forward. The workshop took place in a Belltown conference center. The room glowed with light as 200 employees packed the seats. Ava stood at the podium. No slides, no notes. Only her hands clasped tightly to conceal their trembling. She gazed at the crowd, feeling as if the world awaited her failure. Then she began, her voice small yet clear, like a stream forcing its way through rock. She spoke of the days when she was just a number in prison, when no one asked who she had been before or after her sentence. She spoke of hundreds of job applications, slammed doors, and contemptuous glances when they learned she'd been incarcerated. The pain of those rejections still gnawed at her, but she let none of it show. She told of the moment she was truly seen, when someone believed in her. Her eyes sweeping to the back row, pausing at Nathan Cole, who sat with arms folded, his gaze warm and encouraging. Ava smiled, a genuine smile, and said she was here not because she had been saved, but because someone believed that her best parts were still worth something. The room erupted in applause. Some wiped away tears, and for the first time, Ava felt her voice had power. From that day on, Ava became the face of the New Opportunity Program, Nathan's initiative to hire those who had stumbled. She worked tirelessly, meeting candidates, listening to their stories, and helping them find their way back. Each story reminded her she was not alone, that scars need not mark the end. But Ava's journey did not stop there. One day, while reviewing company data, she uncovered a suspicious contract tied to James Reed, her ex-boyfriend who'd driven her to prison. Her heart clenched as betrayal's memory surged, yet she did not falter. She sat for hours before her screen, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The coding skills she taught herself in prison became her weapon. She exposed the forged contract and unveiled James's multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. When her report reached the leadership team, the boardroom fell silent, then burst into admiration. Ava, the woman once scorned as a stain, had saved the company from a financial catastrophe. That act was more than a victory. It was affirmation that Ava was no longer a victim of her past. Colleagues who once avoided her in the cafeteria now looked at her differently, not with curiosity or judgment, but with respect. Ava strode down the hall of Cascade Innovations, her shoulders squared, her steps light yet determined. She no longer bowed her head, nor said thank you more than needed. In her heart burned a new flame, not just for herself, but for those still waiting for their own chance. And somewhere in the distance, in Nathan's watching eyes, Ava knew her true journey had begun. Not the day she left prison, but the moment she chose to stand up and speak her truth. 1 year after setting foot at Cascade Innovations, Ava Harper stood on the stage of the National Tech Conference in San Francisco. The dazzling lights played across her face, now more radiant than ever. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with quiet pride. She was no longer the hungry waitress clutching a crumpled resume in Seattle. She was now a technology strategist, a symbol of triumph over adversity. Yet deep inside, she still bore the scars of her past. 18 months wrongfully imprisoned, the pain of losing her mother, and the contemptuous glances that once nearly broke her. Before thousands of eyes, Ava felt the weight of her journey, and the power of those who believed in her, especially Nathan Cole, the man she once bought a burrito for with her last dollar. She began her speech in a warm, resonant voice, as though sharing a story long held in her heart. She admitted she had once believed she needed to be perfect to erase her past, that only dazzling success could hide her wrongful conviction. But she was wrong. She spoke of the moment a sodden burrito in a waxed paper bag, offered by a stranger, made her feel seen, not as an ex-prisoner, but as someone worthy of trust. Her words struck a chord. Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. Nods of understanding followed. When she finished, the hall erupted in applause, not just for her story, but for the sincerity behind every word. Ava stood there, hands unclenching, feeling as if she had shed an invisible burden, emerging freer than ever. After her speech, Ava exited the auditorium, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She made her way to a quiet corner by the bay, where Nathan Cole waited. He stood there, hands in his pockets, his gaze gentle, yet full of meaning. Nathan handed her a small leather-bound notebook. On its first page was inscribed, "From the valley to the peak." Ava touched the cover, her finger tracing the lettering, her heart warming at the promise held within. Nathan looked into her eyes and, in a voice firm with conviction, told her he loved her. Ava's eyes glistened with tears. She responded with simple, heartfelt truth. She loved him too. They clasped hands and walked together across the Golden Gate Bridge, once strangers meeting by Pike Place, now companions building a world where second chances are more than a dream. Ava's journey transformed Cascade Innovations. The company became a beacon of compassion, a place where those who stumbled are given the chance to shine. Ava, from penniless waitress to inspiring leader, ignited hope not only in her colleagues but in millions who witnessed her speech. She did not erase her past. She turned it into a story of courage, of the power of belief and kindness. With every step alongside Nathan, Ava felt the freedom she once thought unreachable, freedom to be herself, to be loved, and to be respected. Ava's story teaches us this profound truth. You do not have to be perfect to be loved or to succeed. Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you and a heart brave enough to rise after a fall, to change the world. If this story touched you, let it remind you that even the smallest act of kindness can sow the seeds of something extraordinary. Thank you for joining us at 30 Millionaire Stories. Please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and send this story to your family and friends in the United States. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Let's keep spreading these inspiring tales because every small act can change a life.